You know, some people are just seen as monsters. Their cruelty is just a simple, terrifying fact of life. But what if that cruelty isn't the beginning of their story, but the end? The final chapter of a book we never got to read. Today, we're going to dig into the anatomy of a hardened heart by looking at the life of a man named Rahim Khan. We're going to try to understand the hidden mechanics of bitterness and the quiet possibility of redemption. Let's peel back the layers and see what really created the man his village saw as a monster. So, our story kicks off right here, not with the man himself, but with his reputation. As Rahim Khan walks through his village, conversations just die. He's the specter of fear, and the villagers, well, they don't mince words. They call him a devil. And this isn't just some casual insult. It's a community verdict, a label that's been cemented over years and years. The real question is, how did he earn it? All right, so let's start with the evidence. Before we start digging around for reasons, we need to understand the man the villagers saw every single day. What did he do to forge this reputation? Now, this list is just, wow. It paints a complete picture of total isolation. His violence isn't just a rumor. We're talking specific, brutal acts against kids and animals. But look closer. The cruelty, it echoes inward. His own sons, Bundu and Nuru, literally ran away from him. His wife of 3 decades finally had enough and left. Even his home stands apart, like a physical symbol of a man completely cut off from the world. Yeah, for 3 long decades, his wife just bore the brunt of it all. She was the one he could curse, the one he could beat. In his mind, she wasn't just his wife. She was a stand-in for every single thing he was angry at the world for. So when she finally leaves, he's left totally alone, not with sadness, but with this uncomfortable silence. The target of all his rage is just gone. And this is the question that changes everything. It's so easy to just write him off as pure evil, but this story, it suggests a much more complicated truth. Was this bitterness just his nature, or was it something that was made? To find out, we have to go back, way back. This brings us right to the heart of the mystery. We're rewinding the clock to his youth, searching for the origin story of all this anger, the exact moment the Iron Fist entered his soul. This timeline lays it all out so perfectly. You start over here on the left with a young Rahim Khan, full of life. He was athletic, he was skilled, and he had 2 huge dreams, a career in the circus and marrying the girl he loved, Radha. But as we move along the timeline, bam, we hit a wall. His parents, totally bound by tradition, crush both dreams. Circus work, too lowly. Marrying a Hindu girl, irreligious. His dreams are just dismantled, and in their place, he's forced into a life he never chose, which leads to this terrible, resentful vow that would end up defining his entire life. And this right here just brilliantly illustrates that transformation. I mean, look at the 2 columns. On the left, you've got the man he was. Hopeful, romantic, a kind soul. And on the right, the man he became. The journey from one side to the other wasn't an accident. It was a reaction to this profound sense of loss and injustice. It's a chilling example of how a broken heart can harden into a fist. This is it. This is the turning point. On his wedding night, he looks at his new bride, not as a partner, but as a symbol of every single thing he's lost. And right there, in that moment, he makes a terrible choice, to channel all of his frustrated dreams and rage onto her. This is the decision that poisons the next 30 years of his life. So for 3 decades, that vow held true. He was a fortress of bitterness. But then, an unexpected crack appears in the armor, and it comes from the most unlikely of places. 30 years. I mean, just imagine that. Living every single day with anger as your main emotion. He had perfected his isolation, perfected his cruelty. He was completely set in his ways. But then, after his wife leaves and he's completely, utterly alone in his hut, something small and fragile enters his world. So what's really crucial here is that this change isn't some big, sudden epiphany. It happens in these little stages. First, you see his old instinct take over, pure destruction. He's ready to smash the nest. But then, hesitation. The fierce, tiny defense of the parent sparrows actually amuses him. This leads to step 3, observation, which slowly melts into a real connection. And then comes the key final step. He names the baby birds after the very sons he drove away, Nuru and Bundu. He's rebuilding a family, even if it's only in his heart. So this newfound connection, it's not just something happening in his head. It actually starts to show up in his actions, offering these faint glimpses of the kinder man who had been buried for so long.
And here we see the results. His cruelty starts to fade. The bruises on his oxen finally heal. His whole routine changes. He's hurrying home, not to rage, but to watch his new little family. He even tries to undo his fearsome reputation, shouting at the kids who run away from him that he means them no harm. But here's the tragic irony. The villagers only see this as more proof of his madness. His change is real, but to the outside world, he's just getting weirder. And then comes the test. A storm hits, a big one, and he sees that the leak in his roof is dripping right onto the nest, threatening his only friends. All this newfound compassion is now faced with a real moment of truth. And he makes a choice. In a single act of selfless care, Rahim Khan, the hard-hearted devil, goes out into the pouring rain to fix the roof for the birds. He gets completely drenched, risking everything to protect this tiny, fragile family. It's an act that ends up costing him his health, but it proves the change in his heart is absolutely complete.
And this act of sacrifice, well, it leads us to the final tragic part of our story. Rahim Khan has found a kind of redemption, but it's a redemption that no one else will ever get to see.
He gets sick from the rain, really sick. As he's lying there dying, feverish and alone, the villagers hear him talking. But you see, he's not talking to himself. He's talking to the sparrows, his children. His last words aren't of anger or bitterness. They're about a father's love and concern for the only family he has left.
And this right here, this is the ultimate tragedy of his story. The villagers look through a crack in the door and they see exactly what they expect to see, a cruel man who has finally gone completely mad. But inside that hut, a totally different reality is unfolding, one of love, worry, and a quiet, final peace. It's just a stark reminder of how our own judgments can blind us to the truth.
When they finally break the door down, it's too late. All they find is his body and the 4 sparrows, the only living witnesses to the profound transformation of his soul. They saw his final kindness, they heard his final love, but they can't tell anyone what happened.
Which leaves us with this final, kind of haunting question. Rahim Khan lived as a monster, and he died, in the eyes of the world, as a madman. His change was real, but it was entirely unseen. So does a redemption that happens only in the heart, with no one else to validate it, does it truly matter? It's a question worth thinking about.